Aloha, I'm Dr. Kathy McCoy, and I'd like to talk today briefly about our assumptions versus the reality about gray divorce. Now, we've been hearing a lot about gray divorce recently, and headlines talking about the rate of gray divorce doubling in the last 20 or 30 years, and people over 50 getting divorced in greater numbers. And we often wonder what that means, and we make assumptions about it. And this was very apparent to me during a recent college reunion that I attended. The talk of the reunion was that one of our classmates, who had been married for more than 40 years, was getting a divorce. Another classmate pulled me aside and said, "So what's the story? How come he's getting divorced? Does he have a girlfriend? Is he getting a red sports car? What's the deal? Do you know?" And I said, "Oh, I have no idea. Who knows?" And actually, I did know, but I didn't want to share with classmates what was going on about his painful story. And the story was that he and his wife had been very unhappy for a number of years, but they made a real commitment to raise their children together and to try to make their marriage work. Both of them really wanted the marriage to work. And they decided to split only when he realized that the level of stress was so great in the marriage that he really feared for his life. He told me, you don't leave a relationship of 4 or 5 decades on a whim. You just don't. I felt that if I didn't leave, I was going to have a heart attack or stroke sooner rather than later, and I had to leave in order to live. And I found that, quite at odds with the assumptions that so many of us have been making about his life and the life of many people who are going through gray divorces. I think another assumption many of us make is that people getting a divorce when they're over 50 are doing it because of hitting some kind of life phase that people call middle-age crazy, when they yearn for freedom and a sports car and maybe a younger girlfriend or boyfriend. But the fact is that it's more complex than that. And even those that we assume are splitting because maybe they have an empty nest and they realize that they don't have so much in common anymore now that the children are gone, that for a couple to really make the decision to split is not that cut and dried. That many times the people, statistically, the people most likely to divorce in midlife are those who've been divorced before. And that explains a lot of what we're hearing is the doubling of the divorce rate in over 50s. Because, think about it, in our parents' generation, there was a tendency to just white knuckle it through years of unhappy marriage because the stigma of divorce was so much worse. But the baby boomers, who are now comprising most of the senior generation these days, have no such reluctance to divorce when that appears to be the best solution. So that's why we're hearing about gray divorce being increasingly common, but it's still statistically quite uncommon. Only 1 in 4 couples who divorce are over 50. And those who do, again, are more likely to be divorcing in a remarriage than in an original marriage, although, of course, there are always exceptions to that. Another assumption many of us make is that when a couple divorces after their children have gone on to their independent lives, that'll be more conflict free and won't involve as much pain. But in fact, it involves a lot of pain, not only for the partners who are splitting, but also for the adult children. The adult children can feel a lot of grief about the family changing and coming apart. And I remember one adult daughter telling me, I knew my parents weren't happy, and but yet they made it work all these years. Why can't they make it work a little longer, a lot longer? Now that the grandchildren are here, I just hate the fact that our family's divided. And now that the grandchildren are here, I wish my parents could enjoy their grandchildren together. And I'm sure the parents wish that that were possible too. So I think those of us who support and love families who are going through such a crisis, not be quick to judge adult children who seem to be, that we might think are overreacting to a family split when they might be half a continent away, because it's always painful to have a family make a major change. Many adult children are wondering where they fit in this newly reconfigured family, particularly if one or both of the parents are thinking about remarrying. That can be, for adult children, as traumatic as the original divorce. So I think it's important in trying to support these families to be aware of that. And another thing to be aware of is that as much as a divorcing couple may feel that they would be happier apart, and in fact, they do seem happier apart and they're certainly healthier apart, there's still some grief involved over a long period of time. The middle-aged divorcees may look back and miss close family times together and grieve the happy times that were a part of their imperfect lives with their spouses. So I think it's important for us to be supportive of our friends and family members who are divorcing, and celebrating with them not only the positive changes in their lives, but also being supportive of them in the grief as they look back, and to stand with them and comfort them and celebrate with them whatever they need at the time. And we'll be talking more about this very complex issue, but I just wanted to start off by sharing some of this assumption versus reality with you today.